Hey everybody, welcome to the show around the nation right here, TOT Nation. Happy Monday. We got a lot of great stories here on the show today, so stick around. We're a little late today, but that just means there's going to be a fantastic show, so you want to stick around, put a lot of work into it. That said, it's nice to be back on a Monday. We haven't been doing that very often lately. Due to different things, of course, being sick, having the meetings and all that stuff. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back. So, like I said, got a great show ahead for you guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like and share button. That helps us out greatly. That doesn't seem to be working today. Okay, but anyway, sorry, I've got my tablet over here, which I'm using to try to keep track of things, and it does not track. It does not keep track of things, apparently. It's not doing a very good job. Sad. Anyway, like I said, please like and share. Helps us out greatly, helps the show get out, and that's something that I definitely need. All right. Anyway, now, let's start with our first story. Let's just jump into immigration. Seems to be a hot topic right now. Okay. Of course. Okay. Now, yesterday was Easter Sunday, and President Trump, while I guess I don't know if it was before the egg roll or after the egg roll, and of course that makes me think of Chinese food, egg rolls. I know I'm going off on a weird tangent on this story already, but sometime during that or after that or before that or maybe before or after, he was talking about the military and how strong our military is to little kids. Donald Trump found time to tweet about the Democrats in DACA and his inability to fund the wall. Now, look, in the recent budget deal, and I've talked about this, Trump got about $1.6 billion to go towards border security, right? Now, that border security doesn't go to a big, beautiful wall with a big, beautiful door and giant gold letters with the word Trump on it, which is probably what he envisions when he looks at a wall. No, this goes to some fencing in some areas and, where we could actually maybe put a little bit of fencing. Okay, so he knew he didn't want to sign this bill. He did. This is the omnibus, of course. And he's like, I was very, very unhappy with this bill. I don't want to sign anything like this again. Well, that's because he knew he didn't get what he wanted. So now he's going to throw a fit. On Twitter, he said, Border Patrol agents are not allowed to properly do their job at the border because of ridiculous liberal, and then he had to put in Democrat, laws like catch and release, getting more dangerous, caravans coming, Republicans must go to nuclear option to pass tough laws. Now, no more DACA deal. Oh, no more DACA deal. Well, that's very interesting. We'll get to that. Okay, so there's so much ridiculousness in this tweet that I have to break it down piece by piece because of how stupid it is. Okay, for one, let's go nuclear option. Let's go nuclear, right? Now, what does he mean by that? Basically eliminating the filibuster. Mitch McConnell, by the way, and this rare praise for Mitch McConnell again. I know this is weird. I'm trying not to make it a habit, but he's actually doing sensible things. Mitch McConnell's like, no, we're not going to do that. And look, I think that's good because when you think about it, like, if he gets rid of the filibuster, well, then the Democrats have no way to counter some of Trump's most egregious proposals. We would just have to count on Republicans not falling in lockstep. Good luck on that. But look, Mitch McConnell, he's got a political motive on this. I don't think that he's doing this because he wants to preserve the Senate rules and do the right thing. No. what Mitch McConnell wants to do is to make sure that when the Democrats take over, that they don't do the same thing, and that they don't go nuclear and try to ram through Democratic priorities. He's like, no, can't do that. Let's not get rid of that. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's not go down that road. Now, the other thing is, what are you talking about DACA for? You killed DACA, right? You killed DACA in order to force a vote on the Trump wall. That did not work. That gamble didn't work. And look, DACA is now in the hands of the courts. So really, he can't really do anything about DACA anyway, even if he wanted to. Now, he mentioned the caravans. Now, that's very interesting. What's going on? What's all this about caravans? Well, BuzzFeed had initially reported on Friday that more than 1,000, about 1,200 Central Americans, primarily from the country of Honduras, were making a trip up through Mexico to the U.S. border. Now, that trip is incredibly dangerous, and they decided that, hey, we're all just going to join together, and we're going to travel together, so to make the trip that is normally very dangerous, because there are people, cartels and stuff that like to basically rob immigrants or rob these migrants, sometimes kidnap them, hold them for money, extortion, things like that. And they're like, no, if we travel in a gigantic group, that makes it a little bit more difficult for these people, these highwaymen, to basically accost us, right? Because some people are taking what little life savings that they actually have to try to get into the United States. Now, BuzzFeed says that these migrants are looking to seek asylum from their criminal elements back home or slip into the United States undetected. Now, that prompted Fox News to do a little bit of a fear-mongering segment on these immigrant caravans, and I've got that video. Watch.
Even if we're standing at the border with our hands out saying, don't enter, all they have to do is cross one foot into the border, and we have to then take them into custody. And if they ask for asylum, or if they say, I fear to go back to my country, then we have to process them under that quote-unquote credible fear, which then allows them to be released into our country. And what's funny about this is President Obama used to say, well, they're hiding in the shadows. Well, all we're doing is going to release about 1,200 people that are then going to go hide in the shadows again. They're going to wait for an immigration reform, and they're going to create havoc and chaos. I mean, how many times do we have to hear stories of United States citizens being killed by people that are here illegally before we actually do something?
Oh my God. They're going to create havoc and chaos. I mean, how many stories have we done on immigrants that have hurt and killed Americans? I mean, all they want to do is just come into the United States illegally, which is already horrible, hide in the shadows, and then prey on American citizens. That is absolutely ridiculous. You realize a lot of these people, look, most of these people are from Honduras, as I mentioned before. They're fleeing from death, not only from the government, but of course drug cartels as well. These are regular people that have taken everything that they've had to try and get away from that place because they fear being murdered. And no, of course, Fox News is like, no, they're coming here to harm us. They're coming here to kill us. They're coming here to prey on Americans. I mean, look at the stories. Look at Case Stein. Look at Case Stein. I mean, look at all these immigrants, these criminal aliens coming in to kill us. When in actuality, it's actually very, very rare. And the reason that it gets hyped up so much is because it gets people afraid. Now, what's funny is that the stuff that you heard here, okay, well, before I get to that, right? So there's another video about the solution to this. This is Fox News' proposed solution. Let's watch.
Well, there's a couple things that we have to do. We have to change the law. Our legislators actually have to stand up, and we control. The Republicans control the House and the Senate. They do not need the Democrat support to pass any laws that they want. They can go the nuclear option, just like what they did on the confirmations. They need to pass laws to end the catch and release program that will allow us to hold them for a long time. They need to create more bed space for ICE to hold these individuals. And frankly, we have to follow through on President Trump's rhetoric. The Border Patrol in 2017, we saw these huge drops, and the Border Patrol agents, they affectionately call it the Trump effect. Well, that Trump effect is now gone because the agencies and the Obama holdovers, they haven't followed through on his vision.
Okay, so look, you might have noticed that some of that solution ended up being tweeted out by the president. Almost verbatim. Now, there's more. Trump said, Mexico is doing very little, if not nothing, at stopping people from flowing into Mexico through their southern border and into the U.S. They laugh at our dumb immigration laws. They must stop the big drug and people flows, or I will stop their cash cow. NAFTA, need wall. Again, no, they're not laughing at us. Drugs, look, we're suffering from an opioid epidemic, right? It comes from the overprescription of drugs from pharmaceutical companies. This is not a problem that is caused by Mexican drug cartels. No, this is a problem caused by our pharmaceutical industry that their number one concern is padding their bottom lines. So it has nothing to do with drug gangs from Mexico. They're a completely different thing. Then, of course, he talks about the people flowing in. We have a net immigration of 0. So, again, tell me about how there are so many people that are flowing in the border. No. Now, there is one thing in that tweet that actually I do like. Yeah, let's stop NAFTA. Look, bad trade deals are what killed the American middle class, and what helped kill the American middle class, right? That's the only thing in there that actually sounds reasonable. The rest is garbage. Absolute fear-mongering garbage. So if we actually do something about NAFTA, thanks to immigration, I mean, it'll be weird how we got there. But if we get there to doing something that's better than NAFTA, great. Okay. Anyway, now, so he talked about how Mexico is not doing anything on this crisis. They're not doing anything. They're just letting people come right through the country. Well, according to a report from the USA Today, the United States directs an average of $320 million worth of aid to Mexico a year. Now, what is that aid for? Well, the largest chunk of that aid goes towards law enforcement. That includes helping the Mexican authorities capture drug lords, support improvements to the Mexican judicial system and security, including along Mexico's southern border, helping them stem the flow of immigrants from Central and South America. So we give Mexico money, and what they do is that they secure their southern border. Now, according to that same article, after Obama authorized billions more after the crisis with unaccompanied minors, over 300,000 migrants had been detained by the Mexican authorities, meaning that we give Mexico money in foreign aid, and they use that money to go and do exactly what Trump is saying that they do not do. Stop migrants at the border. So what's funny is that Trump has threatened to pull that funding. So that would actually make the problem worse, or what you perceive as a problem. Now that leads me to the irony of this next tweet. Quote, Mexico's got to help us at the border. They're not going to help us at the border. It's a very sad thing between the two countries. Yeah, very, very sad. Sad, baby. Mexico has got to help us at the border. I'm not repeating either. And a lot of people are coming in because they want to take advantage of DACA, and we're going to have to really see. Again, look, reading his tweets is like reading a fucking word salad. I don't know if I should add croutons. I don't know. Croutons give me heartburn, but you know what I mean. So he's like, they're coming here to take advantage of DACA. We got to end the DACA program. But you did end the DACA program. But even if you hadn't ended the DACA program, which, look, is now in the courts, now they're fighting out in court, so you really can't do anything anyway. Congress can't do anything anyway. But look, even if all that wasn't happening and we still had DACA, no one could come here to take advantage of DACA. This caravan of 1,200 migrants fleeing from violence and death, they're not going to be able to take advantage of DACA. Why? Because to apply to DACA, Migrants must meet certain requirements. Here they are. They must have entered the U.S. before turning 16. Okay. Have no serious criminal background. Okay. And have lived continuously in the U.S. since June 15th of 2007. It is now April 2nd of 2018. When those migrants come here, they, by definition, do not qualify for DACA. Our president's a fucking dumbass. You're president of the United States. You have access to all the information in the world. And yet you don't know this. You don't know this because you're dumb, because you're stupid, and because you get your talking points from Fox News. And that's frustrating, right? Super, super frustrating. And look, he's using all this to try to get his border wall, for one. But he's also taking, as I mentioned, he's taking these policy positions from a propaganda arm from state TV. And look, even more frustrating than all that is we have immigration of net zero. But yet all you hear is just fear-mongering bullshit against hordes of immigrant invaders. These are people that have nothing. They have no power, no money, no homes. The only thing that they have is hope of a better life in America than what they're actually fleeing from, which is, as I said before, often death at the hands of their government or drug cartels. But look, I guess that's the reason that we in America don't want them. You know why? It's because we value money over human lives. Now, if you're a rich Saudi prince, for example, come on in, man. If you're a Chinese investor, welcome to America. Go and buy up our property and make it so that regular Americans can no longer afford said property. But if you're poor, and especially if you're from South America, or if you happen to be black, sorry, we don't want you. Go back to your own country and die. That's the position of Donald Trump and these nationalists. We allowed this guy to become president, man. We are no longer worthy of the Statue of Liberty. We are no longer deserving. We might as well just ship it up and send it back to France. Because, I mean, the kind of stuff that Fox News and the Republicans are saying and so many American people are saying about immigrants, we do not deserve that statue. We just don't deserve it. It's horrible. Okay. I've got more on the DACA issue or the immigration issue. And then we'll move on to something else. So I'm just trying to get this stuff up here. Okay. Moving on. So earlier today, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was on Fox and Friends, and she was asked about immigration. Now, that seems to be sort of the main thing the Republicans are talking about and running on as we get closer and closer to the midterms. Basically because, look, the tax cuts have failed. A majority of Americans are now in favor of common sense gun regulation. So that's not something that the Republicans can run on and get a majority of people. And look, you have Democrats out there that are basically energized. A lot of progressives out there that are very energized. And so they're facing a bit of a problem. So here they go. They're going to talk about immigration. In fact, they resort to fear-mongering about this caravan of 1,200 desperate people fleeing likely death from Honduras, from South America. Now, during an interview on Fox and Friends on Monday, Huckabee Sanders is going to do some massive projection on the issue of DACA, in which, of course, Donald Trump had tweeted about during Easter. Now, let's watch.
Look, The president made multiple offers on DACA. He wanted to see something get done, and Democrats refused to actually put something on the table or work with the president to get anything done. They wanted to use DACA recipients as political pawns. I think what's happened here is incredibly sad. Hopefully, Democrats will stop playing political games and actually show up to do what they were elected to do and improve things for people in this country and improve the process that we're going through. Look, the president wanted to make a deal. He made two incredibly generous offers that went far and above even what the previous administrations had done on DACA, and Democrats still refused to make a deal. And I think it's because we're getting close to an election. They don't want to see the president continue to win like he has for the last year and a half, and they're going to do everything they can, even if it means hurting people across this country, if they think that it takes a hit at the president.
Oh my God. They're going to try to hurt people. They're going to try to hurt Americans as long as they can take a shot at the president. Oh, that's a massive projection. Now, look, to be fair, I wish the Democrats had fought more on DACA. I think they actually did give up because the politics they saw were not favorable to them. They didn't want to shut down the government over these 800,000 people. And look, to be honest, polling said that, yes, while most Americans, 87% of Americans are in favor of DACA, they didn't want to face a government shutdown. I didn't agree with that position. I said, shut it the fuck down. Let's do this because these people, they're in crisis. Now, thankfully, the courts have intervened, so we don't have to do that. Nonetheless, 99%, around about 99% of these DACA recipients, these 800,000 people, are law-abiding citizens. And over 90% of them are in school or are working, have jobs. And so what's the problem with the Republicans taking up DACA? Oh, right, they don't want to piss off their ultra-white nationalist base, which is what's going on. Now, according to a CBS poll, 87%, as I said, of Americans support DACA, while most Americans oppose building a wall. Now, that's what Donald Trump wanted to do. He's like, okay, I will give you this deal on DACA, but I want $25 billion for my fucking wall. And, of course, the Democrats decided, no, we're not going to take that deal. And I actually do agree with that decision. Now, that said, let's talk about winning, right? Oh, see, the Democrats don't want to do anything because we're winning, right? I mean, they don't want to see the president continue to win like we've been doing for the last year. Well, let's talk about that. Donald Trump's had the worst approval rating of any president in his first year. Pretty sad, right? But okay, so he's got a low approval rating. Fair enough. How about their big achievement, the Republicans' gigantic achievement, the thing that Donald Trump was so proud about doing? That's the Trump tax cuts, right? Well, it turns out that a majority of Americans are not seeing any benefit from those tax cuts. They're barely sitting in their paychecks, and if they are, they're basically crumbs. So, yeah, people are like, I thought you said this tax cut was going to help us. It's not helping at all. Well, yeah, but okay, so maybe you're not seeing money in your paycheck, but jobs. We're doing better on jobs, right? We got better jobs, right? No, it looks like people are actually the people that Donald Trump helped tried to say that we're going to help the most ended up losing their jobs. For example, people lost jobs at Carrier. They decided to move their plant. You also have Verizon that fired a bunch of people, Sam's Club, etc. I mean, there's a gigantic list of companies that decided, you know what, we're going to take these tax cuts and then we're going to fire people. We're going to just lay them off. We're going to get rid of them because we don't need them. And we're going to take that extra money from the tax cuts and we're going to go do executive stock buybacks, which help out our shareholders. Because that's our entire point for being a corporation is we're going to enrich our shareholders. No, we're not going to create jobs that we don't need. No, the only thing that creates jobs is more demand. But we don't have that kind of demand. So because most people don't have money. Regular people don't have money. Most of it's gone to the top. And of course, these tax cuts have just done a lot more to exacerbate income inequality. So congratulations, you've done literally nothing. And one more thing that he's done, we're no longer winning on, even though they're saying, no, we're winning. We're in energy, right? So Donald Trump has deregulated fossil fuels. So, hey, look, we're winning on that. Natural gas, coal, oil, all that stuff. But we're not winning on solar. You know why? It's because Donald Trump just put a bunch of tariffs on the solar industry. In fact, that's going to lose us about 23,000 jobs in the fastest growing industry in the United States, the fastest growing employer in the United States. Now we're seeing job losses thanks to Donald Trump. So, hey, winning, right? Well, who's winning? Well, I know who's winning. Rich people and corporations. All right. But anyway, look, you want to talk about hurting people, right, for political gain. Well, the Trump administration has been doing just that. Now, look, did the Democrats play politics with people's lives? Of course they do, right? Now, so do the Republicans, and it's absolutely maddening. It's like neither of them are interested or capable in doing the right thing, which in this case is protecting people who were brought here as children and who have now made America their home. They're Americans. This is the only home that they actually know. As I said before, like 99% of DACA recipients are law-abiding citizens. They're not criminals, and the majority of them have jobs and or are getting an education. And if you want to think politically, 87% of Americans all across the political spectrum, includes Republicans, independents, they all approve of the DACA program. So, look, stop playing politics, right? And this is for the White House. Stop playing politics and stop trying to get people, taxpayers, to fund your fucking wall. And look, again, that's the only reason that Trump ended DACA in the first place. Oh, I want to go to put it to Congress so that I can get funding for my wall. Because, look, I know Mexico's not going to pay for it. Yes, that was his campaign promise. Oh, he was going to build a wall. Mexico. No, Mexico wasn't going to pay for the wall. They were never going to pay for the wall. It was always going to be on taxpayers. That's why we don't want to waste $25 billion on something that could be defeated by a $10 ladder from Walmart. It's ridiculous, right? And look, Democrats, as I said before, they're not going to take any deal that involves funding for the wall because right now, look, you can't even do a deal because this is now an issue that's in the courts. Trump, right now, he's already lost. Look, if you ask me, losing is not exactly the same as winning. So, look, the Trump administration, as I said, because they are not winning, they're doing all these political hit jobs, and they're doing this rhetoric that has no basis in reality. Yeah, but that's your normal Republican Party under Trump. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll have more stories. We're going to switch away from immigration, which is fun. So we'll do that, and then we'll come back. We got more stories, so stay right here around the nation. We'll be right back. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Helps us out greatly. And okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about how Republicans hate poor people. You're going to love this segment. Okay. I forgot I had the monitor in the shot. Oops. Sad. Okay. Well, it's finally happened. The Republicans have finally admitted what I've been saying about them the entire time. They do, in fact, hate poor people. Now, recently, I want to show you something that not only was on Facebook, but also on Twitter, a message from the Alamosa County Republicans. Let's take a look. It says, out of self-respect, be Republican. Democrats love poor people because they think that poor people will vote Democrat. Republicans hate poor people because they think the dignity of man is above being poor. You might want to ask Jesus about that. Jesus actually kind of liked poor people and was not a fan of rich people. In fact, something about camels' eye of a needle, trying to fit through that. You know what? Don't misconstrue what I just did, okay? I just realized that looked bad. I'm thinking if you're a good Christian, like these people claim to be, then you wouldn't say, oh, I hate poor people because I think the dignity of man is above being poor. There's so much wrong with this. So let me translate, okay? Be a Republican because we think that poor people suck and they should raise themselves up by their bootstraps. And if they don't, well, they're lazy. So have a little self-respect. That's a pretty bad message. Not only that, but of course, there's that accusation that Democrats, I mean, they only help poor people so that poor people will vote for them. Well, how's that working out? Actually, pretty terribly. The Democrats have, obviously, they're not in charge of the presidency. They're not in charge of Congress. They're not in charge of most of the state houses. It seems like that strategy, if that was really a strategy, and it's not, has failed. Actually, you know, I would think, I actually want the Democrats to try to appeal to poor people a little bit more. Poor people, the middle class, I want them to actually be the party of the poor and middle class. Because right now we don't have a party. Neither party is for the poor. They're all for the oligarchs. They're all for the billionaires. Because that's what our system, unfortunately, is based on. Money and politics. So, and of course, serving the donors, serving the corporations. Again, I wish we had a party. I wish the Democrats were as socialist, I know, heads explode, as the Republicans claim them to be. But anyway, now here's the thing, right? Progressives, and I'm talking about progressives, not the centrist milquetoast Democrats, they are in favor of alleviating poverty. And not because it gets votes. No. And this is the projection here, because Republicans love to hand out things to their donors, to their supporters. What do they like to hand out? They like to hand out tax cuts for the rich. Yeah, we're just going to throw a bunch of tax cuts. We're going to make it rain up in this bitch when it comes to rich people and corporations, because that's who we work for. Democrats, at least the progressives, do something different. They should say, hey, let's hand up some opportunity to people who are struggling. For example, let's fight for a living wage. Let's fight for $15 an hour. That would actually help you get out of poverty. You know, you work your way out of poverty, right? You can't pull yourself out of poverty if you make $7.25 an hour. In fact, anything less than $15 an hour, you really can't live on. That's why they call it a living wage, right? Now, you also can't get ahead if you're drowning in student loan debt. The average American now has over $30,000 in student loan debt, somewhere around $32,000, I believe. That's around the equivalent of a $15 minimum wage. So when you think about it, that wage that they these Republicans fight so hard against, and centrist Democrats as well, they fight so hard against, average American has that much amassed in student loan debt. And so many people have so much more in debt. It's kind of hard to not be poor with all of that going on. And of course, that we have a lack of opportunity now. We got people that kick down the ladders of opportunity when it comes to education and things like that. For example, a college education costs like 1,200% more than it did in the 1960s. So there's your ladder of opportunity. It's not there anymore. And there's no guarantee that when you get that education that you can actually get a good paying job anymore. So that lack of opportunity, low wages, lack of unions and things like that, that keeps people locked into poverty. But again, the Republicans say, yeah, I don't want to help you with that. No, what I want to do is I want to give more money to the rich and let it trickle down all over you. And then when you can't stop being poor because you have no opportunity and you have terrible wages and no representation in the workplace, we're going to chastise you for being poor and for voting in some ways. Like if you vote for progressives, you are voting for your own economic self-interest. When you vote Republicans, you are not. So now, you can probably guess how well this post went over with people. Well, I will tell you how. That post was quickly deleted and the staffer fired. Gone. Now, they also issued a rare apology. Now, this is interesting. Now, the group called the post, quote, inappropriate and offensive. And they said of the author, the person who has now been shit-canned, quote, the author acted independently and without the concurrence of any other member of the Alamosa County Republicans. The regrettable post was made with the intention of condemning poverty, not the persons affected by poverty, and was not meant to insult anyone. No, we just hate poor people because we believe the dignity of man is above that. So if you're poor, you don't have dignity. Now, furthermore, they said the author sincerely regrets the post and has offered his resignation from the position with the Alamosa County Republicans, which has been accepted. Actions have consequences. Oh, yes, he totally offered his resignation. I believe that one. No, the person who made it obviously was shit-canned. Now, here's the funny thing, right? I believe the person who did this, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, most likely a man, most likely a white man. No, the person who made this post was likely being very honest. I think the only thing that they actually regret is being too honest about it. Why? It's because Republicans really do hate poor people. That's why they constantly frame poor people as lazy grifters and use that to target welfare programs these people depend on. I mean, let me give you some examples here. I mean, who could forget the constant attacks on people in poverty by the biggest conservative organization in the United States, Fox News? In fact, I've got some examples. I want to show that to you right now.
Robert, I'm just going to give our viewers a quick run-through of what items poor families in America have. 99% of them have a refrigerator. 81% have a microwave. 78% have air conditioning. 63% have cable TV. 54% have cell phones. 48% have a coffee maker. I'm not surprised, they're only about $10. 38% have a computer. 32% have more than 2 TVs. 25% have a dishwasher. This, sir, Mr. Rector, is very different from what it was just a few years ago, isn't it?
Listen, I know there's a big thing trying to destigmatize food stamps, but the good part about the stigma is it actually does serve as an impetus to get people off of it.
Could you live on $133 a month for food?
No.
Andrea?
I should try it because you know how fabulous I'd look? I'd be so skinny. I mean, the camera adds 10 pounds. It really does. I would be looking great.
If you don't want to be poor, usually you wind up with a job. Really, that is the answer, and yet you look at the black unemployment rate, it's staggering.
Those are just a couple of examples. There's plenty more where that came from. Gee, I wonder if Republicans hate poor people? Because I just can't tell. Oh, Andrea Tanteros, that is the fucking worst. Oh, no, I should try living on $133 a month. I would just look so fabulous starving myself. Oh, my God. Okay. Let's move on, man. Terrible. Okay. Okay. Now, I think many of you probably know about Sinclair Media. Now, that's the right-wing media company that John Oliver famously took down. TYT's talked about it. I've talked about it on the show. And look, they're basically a company that big media company that does right-wing propaganda that is tied to the president. Well, now everybody seems to have caught up because there is a video of hosts that work for Sinclair. This is a local news hosts that are, well, okay, so the video itself went viral, and I don't want to spoil it here, but basically it shows a lot of anchors giving a similar speech on fake news. Now, according to the New York Times, Timothy Burke, a video director at Deadspin, had read a report from CNN which quoted local station anchors who were uncomfortable with the speech, with this specific speech. Now, Mr. Burke tracked down the Sinclair affiliates and found out that they had aired what they called a forced read. Now, Burke then took the video, or took video of all these different anchors, put them together in a video that went viral, and I want to show it to you here because I think that this is indicative of what they're trying to do. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 For once, I couldn't agree more. Wow. You know, when there is a shot where they had all of them lined up on one screen and all talking at the same time, I couldn't help think, you will be assimilated. Because that's what it sounded like, man. That is creepy. That is scary. So, now, again, I want to give huge credit to Timothy Burke for putting that together over at Deadspin. So you check that out. Now, secondly, this is what propaganda looks like. That's propaganda. Then you got people on the right that are like, oh, the propaganda, the liberals and their propaganda. No, that is what propaganda looks like. Reading off a script about fake news. Now, according to the New York Times, of course, that script came from Sinclair, which is the country's largest broadcaster. Now, they own about 193 television stations. And unfortunately, that number could get a lot bigger. They are looking to acquire Tribune Broadcasting. So that puts them in even more homes. Now, look, I've talked about media consolidation before, and I think that that's an enormous problem, right? And look, right now, media consolidation, we got like 6 companies that control almost all of what you see and hear on television. And that's disastrous. And now, like, this is cable television. Now we got Sinclair that's consolidating local television, local news. Again, that is disastrous. Now, look, on the 6 media companies that own cable, they have a bias. Of course they have a bias, right? That is an establishment bias. That is pro-business, pro-corporate, but also socially liberal. Now, it turns out they are that way because, yes, we're a business. We're a big corporation. Our bottom line relies on advertising. And look, we want to make sure not to offend people. So they're socially liberal because, well, turns out gay people, the LGBT community, and minority communities also have and spend money. And of course, generally, it's good PR not to discriminate against them. But as far as being pro-corporate, lower taxes, less regulation, more consolidation, that's the establishment. The Sinclair media, which is obviously very biased towards being right-wing, is even more dangerous. Because now they're saying, oh, socially acceptable, socially liberal positions? Ha! No. We're going to fearmonger about immigrants. We're going to fearmonger about other countries. We're going to fearmonger about all this stuff. So that's dangerous. And they're slipping that into your local news reports. And that, as they said before, is dangerous to democracy. Now, here's the thing, right? Now, look, the establishment media, and we've hit them a lot. Look, that's part of the reason they don't like Trump, is the fact that he promised to upend the establishment and he attacks the media. Now, Bernie Sanders also promised to upend the establishment, and corporate media, establishment media shits on him too, right? Now, the only time that they don't shit on Trump, ironically, is when he launches missiles at Syria and ejects Russian diplomats. So if he does anything related to what the establishment wants, which is more war, well, then they're happily on his side. So just keep that in mind, right? That the mainstream media does have a bias, and that affects their opinions. Now, Sinclair, they have a bias as well, and that affects their narrative. And their narrative is fake news is bad and dangerous to democracy. And guess who's doing fake news? That's establishment media. So what they're doing is that they're taking pages from the Fox News playbook. Oh, no, you can't trust them. You can only trust us. We're going to give you the actual facts. We're going to give you the real news and not the fake news from the fake news media. Well, again, that's super dangerous because when you start telling people to trust one source and only one source, well, that leads to people who are misinformed. Now, look, those of you who watch this show, for example, I urge you to go out and find news from multiple sources. And because if I get something wrong, I want to know about it. And if I get something wrong, I want to make sure that you guys don't just take my word for it, that you go out and fact check for yourselves. And that you have the information available to say, hey, wait a minute, actually, I think you got that one wrong, dude. Oh, okay, hey, sorry. I just want to do the best that I can, and I realize that I'm one single human being, and that sometimes I get things wrong. But when it comes to organizations like Fox News, for example, and Sinclair, with these local stations, they're saying the opposite. Don't go out and fact check us. Believe us blindly. Because we are the only ones that are out there telling you the truth. And as I said before, that is dangerous to democracy, to use their own words, because a functioning democracy depends on people who are well-informed of the issues. And what Sinclair and what a lot of right-wing media does is they misinform, and they do so on purpose because they try to push a narrative. And so that's one of the big problems. Now, are a lot of people happy about reading that script? No. Actually, they're not. In fact, last week, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer published a copy of the speech and reported that employees at a local news station there, KOMO, were very unhappy about the script. And I'm not surprised. You get handed down a script from on high, and you're like, wait a minute, this sounds like the president. I don't agree with the president. Maybe I'm more liberal. Maybe I'm more progressive, and I don't agree with that. And maybe I'm just more of a journalist, and I want to continue practicing journalistic ethics, and this is a violation of what journalism is actually supposed to be. I'm not in favor of this. I'm not comfortable with this. Now, again, these people's jobs are now on the line, because if you don't read the script, then you're going to lose your job, and then you're going to replace them with somebody who will read the script. And again, that's what's so dangerous about this, and so dangerous about how much of the media pie they're actually going to take. Now, I actually do have some good news on that. But for one, let me give you some more stats. Now, first, CNN reported on March 7th and said that Scott Livingston, the senior vice president of news for Sinclair, had recently read the exact same speech as recently as a year ago, as it was distributed to outlets. So this situation has been happening for a while. And again, big credit to John Oliver for being the first to really tackle that using his platform. But it's not enough. I mean, we've actually got to do something to stop this. Because the problem is that people trust their local news. And they trust it to not be corrupted with a certain bias or a certain narrative. And look, when you do opinion is fine. If you want to do an opinion piece, I do opinion pieces all the time. We're an opinion show. So, and I make that very, very clear from the outset. I take facts and then I do my opinion on it. The problem is that most people watching their local news don't consider that to be opinion, which it's increasingly turning into with its basis on being a pro-conservative, pro-Trump station, or being owned by a pro-Trump station. So what they're doing is that they're taking information, or they're taking opinion, and passing it off as information. They're passing it off as facts. And it's right under your nose, often from newscasters that you have grown to trust. Now, I'm going to give you a disappointing stat, and then I'm going to give you a good stat. Now, more people unfortunately trust their local news. According to a Morning Consult political poll conducted in August of last year, they found that 41% of registered voters have more trust in their local news outlets to report the truth, while 27% said they have more faith in the truthfulness of national news coverage. So, look, people don't already trust the cable news, and that's part of the Trump effect. Trump saying, oh, you can't trust mainstream fake news. You can't do any of that. No. You can only trust, you can trust your local news, and you can trust Fox News. Now, unfortunately, most voters, or a lot of voters, a majority of voters, trust their local news, which is now very likely to be owned by Sinclair. So there's good news, though. Around the same time, Pew Research did a poll and found that 43% of Americans report often getting news online. That is 7 percentage points lower than the 50% who often get news on television. Now, that has been growing exponentially. People have been turning to online news to actually get their news. In fact, this gap between the two news platforms was 19 points in early 2016, more than twice as large. So that gap has been shrinking between people who get their news online and people who get their news from cable television. And I think a lot of that has to do with more younger people that are interested in watching news online. As somebody who does an online show, I think that's great news. But I think that's also good news because there are a lot of actors that are independent, that don't take corporate money, that don't have a corporate bottom line, and will actually try to give you the facts. And then, you know, like I do opinion on those facts. So, and look, there's a downside to that as well. That's why you're seeing a lot of pressure on, for example, Facebook and YouTube to go after independent media as a way to, of course, fight fake news that isn't part of the establishment. So, look, the establishment obviously wants to fight independent progressive media. And, of course, Sinclair also would probably like to fight independent progressive media. And that's because a lot of independent progressive media does news and commentary that usually goes against both the conservative and establishment lines. So I think it's a way to kill progressive points of view, which unfortunately threatens both of them. So just be aware of that. Nonetheless, what Sinclair is doing is incredibly disastrous for the news and media atmosphere, and I hope there is a way to be able to counter that, to be able to stop them from having so much of a consolidation over news. So, or hopefully more people abandon news, abandon cable news and these giant corporations in favor of smaller independent media outlets who will actually tell you the truth. Okay. All right. Let's do one more here. All right. The EPA under Scott Pruitt is now coming after greenhouse emissions and fuel economy standards for cars. Now, what they're doing is that they're basically expected to roll back the initiative, to roll back this initiative at fuel standards and things like that, and they're expected to frame it as eliminating regulation, a regulatory burden on car makers. Now, they say that this would result in more affordable trucks, vans, and sport utility vehicles. These rules, which would be aimed at cutting tailpipe emissions of carbon dioxide, a major contributor to global warming, were one of two pillars of Mr. Obama's climate change legacy. Put forth in 2012, they would have required automakers to nearly double the average fuel economy of new cars and trucks to about 54.5 miles per the gallon by 2025. Now, these efficiency rules are known as CAF. This is Corporate Average Fuel Economy. So, look, the result of this is that basically Trump and the EPA under Scott Pruitt want you to not only put more pollution into the atmosphere, or they don't care, and they want your cars to be less fuel efficient. That means more gasoline sales. So, wonderful. Now, we're not only not doing anything about climate change, we're also going to make you use more gas. Now, Donald Trump said, quote, "I'm sure you all heard the big news that we're going to work on the CAF standards so you can make cars in America again. We want to be the car capital of the world again. We will be, and it won't be long. We'll also be the pollution capital again because under Scott Pruitt, the EPA has decided to stop protecting the environment. And now they're basically protecting polluters." So, wonderful. Now there's more. If fully implemented, the rules would have cut oil consumption by about 12 billion barrels and reduced carbon dioxide pollution by about 6 billion tons over the lifetime of all the cars affected by the regulations. This is according to official EPA projections. So that would have actually saved a lot of fuel and would have reduced climate change. I mean, 6 billion tons over the lifetime of the cars. That is not insignificant. Look, vehicles make up a major contributor to greenhouse gases. Agriculture also actually makes up, I think, the most. But if we're to curb at least one of those, then we could actually prevent the worst from climate change that's going to happen. But unfortunately, we're not going to be going in that direction. Now, one major concern about this is that if we roll back the standards, which we're on track to do, other countries will follow suit. For example, the concern is that automakers will go around the world basically trying to lobby regulators, saying that, look, because the United States has reduced the pace everywhere else should too, said Anup Bandavadekar, a researcher at the International Council on Clean Transportation. Now, they said that global car makers applied developments in one region to lobby for changes in other regions. So we loosen our fuel standards, then they can go to Europe and try to loosen fuel standards there for European automakers. And then suddenly we're back on pace for even more than 2 degrees of warming, which would be disastrous for the human race. The planet will be here, but the human race, we might not be if we continue to destroy our environment. Now, California, interestingly enough, they're actually going to be fighting against this because they have their own waiver that allows them to hold higher standards than the federal government. So they already have higher standards, and they're actually very proud of that fact. Like, yeah, we have higher fuel efficiency standards, and we want to make sure that we actually protect the environment, even if it costs automakers just a little bit more in order to make cars. Sad day, but we're actually trying to do the right thing here. Now, the thing is that automakers, they won't be happy because there will be essentially 2 different markets. And we could see the federal government go after California on behalf of the automakers, on behalf of big industry. So we'll see what happens in that fight. But of course, look, this basically is what's expected to come out of the EPA under Scott Pruitt. Pruitt is a climate change denier. That's no secret. He's pro-fossil fuel industry, of course. And he lives in a condo owned by a power lobbyist couple. That power lobbyist couple also lobbied on behalf of natural gas. And in one trip to Morocco, Pruitt was there pushing fracking. Oh no, liquefied natural gas, it'll be great for Morocco. This is my official position as head of the EPA. By the energy companies, for the energy companies. And look, again, this is disastrous having Pruitt in that position because, look, so far we have seen a rollback on progress on the environment that we're not going to be easily able to fix. I mean, once Trump's gone, you can't just, all the carbon that was released under the Trump administration under Republican rule doesn't go back into the tailpipes. It's there in the environment, and we're going to have to deal with it. So far, under the Trump administration, we've had 67 rules that were meant to protect the environment and slow down pollution disappear under Trump. They're gone, and probably more to come. And now the effect on climate change means it's going to get much, much worse. And look, what we put in the air today, we're not going to feel the impact of until much later. And that's kind of how this works, right? So right now, we're feeling the effect of maybe decades ago carbon that was put into the atmosphere. It has a latent effect. So what we put up there now, we're going to feel decades. And again, it's cumulative. It basically adds up. So if you think it's bad now, or if we're having disasters now, we'll just wait. Just wait until all of that carbon that we put out today adds up with the carbon that we put in the atmosphere already. It's going to be a disaster. But hey, at least we'll have cheaper cars, right? But we'll have to fill up more because now they burn gas. MAGA? I guess. Disastrous, man. We got to do something. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation. If you haven't already, please like this stream and go through and subscribe if you haven't already, and go and like our videos. We'll put up these videos later on today, and for those of you who are new to the live stream, we will have a live stream every day, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So come check us out, chat on the stream, like and share, and all that stuff. So and of course join the excellent community of chatters that we have here on YouTube. It is actually one of the best, like the least toxic chat rooms I've ever seen, which is amazing. So, you guys are amazing. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you all tomorrow.